Hello fellow Earthlings, it's Libs, and today I'll be doing my quarterly reading wrap-up. It is officially the start of winter down under, so I figured now would be a good time to talk about all the books I read in autumn. I had quite a good reading time. I think I've read an average of 4 books a month, which is kind of my aim, so I'm pretty happy with that. What I think I'll do is go over some of my stats so far for the year, so that you can get like a vibe of what I've been reading. So my moods, I track everything on Storygraph. So my moods, I tend to read adventurous, reflective, and emotional books. Anything else? And the genres I've read the most of so far this year are classics, fantasy, and romance, which are all things that I never feel like I read much of, but apparently I have. Yeah, so in March I read 5 books, and that ended up being, oh no, mine's slightly different because I think there was one book I finished on the 1st of March and I counted that last time, so I won't count it this time. So 4 books, and I won't go over the pages because that will be wrong. In April I read 4 books, which was 1,425 pages, and then in May I read 5 books again, and that was 1,508 pages. And so far this year, my average rating for books has been 3.85 stars. Okay, so the first book I'm going to talk about is Swing Time by Zadie Smith. This book, what can I say about this book? It's been a while. This is the story of our protagonist. We don't know her name, it's never mentioned. It's kind of jumping back and forth throughout her life as she's studying to be a dancer, and then as she grows up into becoming an assistant for a singer. And it kind of just goes into a lot of themes of like class and privilege and race, and it was really, really interesting. I just found that because it jumped around in time a lot and we didn't know the protagonist's name, it was really hard to connect to it. So I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. Then I read Little Women by Louisa Alcott. I adored this. I knew I would. I gave it 4 stars. I think we all know what Little Women's about, so I won't spend too much time on this. I think my only issue was in the first half of the book. The structure of some of the chapters kind of just annoyed me a little bit, because you'd have some kind of issue would happen with one of the sisters, and then the end would be kind of the chapter would be giving the moral of the lesson, but it was just quite repetitive. So that was the only issue I really had with it, but it's a really sweet, really charming book, and I adored it. Then I listened to my first audiobook. Yes, you'll be getting audiobooks this time. And that was Queens of the Crusades, England's Medieval Queens by Alison Weir. So this is all about Queens of the Crusades. So that was, it went from the wife of Henry III to Edward I. Yes. The only issue I had with this really was it was a bit, it was a little bit of the pacing, but it's, yeah, there's, in a book that's trying to talk about the lives of 5 different queens, it gets a little bit, there's a lot of overlap, so I can kind of see why it was a little bit weird there. And then, yeah, I think just, listening to the audiobook was a bit confusing, because 3 of the queens were Eleanor, so then they'd have to change how they pronounced Eleanor so you could tell the difference, and just at some point it got a bit confusing, but that's just not the book's fault. Then I read Zami, A New Spelling on My Name by Audrey Lorde, which is kind of like her autobiography, but it's also kind of, I guess, stretching the truth because she calls it a biomythology. I loved this. I gave it 5 stars. I don't really know what I can say about it. It's just so beautifully written. And so yeah, I think if you're interested in Audrey Lorde at all, I would recommend this book. It's just, her writing is so beautiful and poetic, and she did all these really cool things and traveled, and it was I loved reading about her travels in Mexico. It was incredible. I loved it. I just highly recommend. Then I read a book I was really determined that I wasn't going to read, and I ended up giving it 5 stars, and that is The Invisible Life of Addie Larue by V.E. Schwab. Everyone was talking about this book last year, and I just thought it sounded so overhyped. But then it was on my library's audio book collection. I was just like, sure, I'll give it a go. And yeah, I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. I loved it so much. Oh, again, you probably have all heard about this book, so I won't go into it too much. Yeah, it's about this young woman in like the 1700s in France, or 1600s in France, who kind of sells her soul so that she can be free and doesn't have to be forced to marry someone. But the problem is that everyone forgets who she is, and when she's not standing in front of them, they forget her. So it was a really cool concept. I know some people had an issue with like the writing style because it is very flowery, but I really liked it. There's just one bit where it was a bit too flowery, and that's just the amount of times the book describes the freckles on her face. It was just a little bit much, but other than that, I adored this book. I read Green Witchcraft, A Practical Guide to Discovering the Magic of Plants, Herbs, Crystals, and Beyond. I gave this 4 stars. I think if you're interested in that kind of thing, it's a really good kind of beginner's book. If you kind of already know about the stuff, then it's probably not worth it for you. I listened to the audiobook, but I will be buying a physical copy of that book. Then I listened to In My Past Life I Was Cleopatra, A Skeptical Believer's Journey Through the New Age by Amal Awad. This is another non-fiction. I gave it 3 stars. I feel like if you don't know a lot about the New Age spaces, you might be interested in this book. But for me, I didn't really learn anything from this. I couldn't really tell what kind of book it was supposed to be, if it was meant to be a memoir or a self-help book. What it was, it's kind of just a mishmash of everything, and it was just a little bit confusing to read. Then I read The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. This book has been on my TBR for 3 years now, so I finally got around to reading it. I really liked the first 3 quarters. And then the final quarter, it just kind of dropped off for me. It was just kind of very open to interpretation. And there are times when I like that, and then there are times when I'm like, no, I would really like some answers about what the hell is happening here. And I just really wanted some more concrete answers than what I got. I also feel like it just kind of went in so many different directions at the end that I just was confused. But I really liked the concept. I really liked the start. It's the story of this uni student who finds this mysterious book in his college library that's got all these different short stories in it. And one of the short stories is a story about something that happened to him, and he knows that that's him. And so he goes down this rabbit hole trying to discover what this book means, how someone could possibly have known that this event happened in his life because he didn't tell anyone about it. and it leads him to this mysterious place called the Starless Sea. Then I read The Queen's Gambit by Walter Tevis. I watched the Netflix show last year or started this year. I can't remember anymore. So I really wanted to read the book because I loved the show. I liked the book. I gave it 3.5 stars. It's just, I don't know. It was a bit harder to connect to, and I found the writing style just a little bit too stiff, I guess. I don't know. It made it a bit harder to connect. I also didn't love the audiobook. I found some of the accents weren't quite right, and it really bothered me. Yeah, so it wasn't my favourite. Also with the audiobook, there is a scene with an assault pretty early on, and having to listen to that is very uncomfortable. So that's just my trigger warning for this book as well. But yeah, I mean, I like the story a lot. I would probably watch the show rather than read the book. Then I read The Dating Plan by Sarah Desai. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Again, I don't feel like I'm a big fan of romance. I kind of only like romance when it's part of something else. I don't really like romance when that's the theme of the book. So I gave this 3 stars because it wasn't really for me. It's the story of Daisy, who is it's the story of Daisy and Liam. They used to hang out all the time when they were kids, and then Liam disappeared, and now he's back in her life, and she kind of hates him, and it's about them creating this plan. It's like fake dating, creating this plan for reasons that you'll find out if you read this book. But there were things I liked about it. I thought Daisy's family dynamic was really cool. It made me really hungry. There's a lot of talking about food, and yeah, I was really hungry. I don't know, my major issue was just that, again, they could very easily have, there were so many issues that could have been solved if people just talked to each other, and no one talked to each other, and it bothered me. And then it very much fell into like the not like other girls trope. It's like, oh, Daisy can use computers and likes the Avengers. She's not like other girls. Oh, and then they would keep listing what everyone liked about each other in this really weird way, and I just didn't like it. I'm just not a romance person. Then I read Far From the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy. I have been trying to read this book since October last year. And there's a reason it's taken me so long to read it. I feel bad saying I didn't like a classic, but the film is better. The film, well, not better, but I don't know. The book is just so slow paced that I just got bored all the time. Whereas if you watch the film with Carey Mulligan, you can just get all the themes and everything, and it's all quick and out of the way. So yeah, I'm not sure Thomas Hardy is the author for me, just because, yeah, I didn't like his writing style. It was so slow, not for me. It's the story of Bathsheba Everdeen. Yes, her name is a bit of a tongue twister there. And she inherits a farm, and it's about her 3 suitors who are all into her, and kind of what it means for her to be a woman at the time, navigating romance and owning a farm and everything. I like the idea of it, and I like a lot of the themes. It was just very, very slow paced, and I just couldn't get into it. Then I read The Master's Tools Will Never Dismantle the Master's House by Audrey Lorde. This is a collection of essays. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. It's like a lot of like feminist and political essays. It's brilliant. Again, I loved it. I wanted to read more of Audrey Lorde after reading Zammy, so I'm really glad that I picked this one up. Would highly, highly recommend if you're interested in that kind of thing. There's not much else I can say about it. It was great. And then the final book I read in autumn was Mythos, the Greek Myths Retold by Stephen Fry. I loved this as well. I also gave it 5 stars. I listened to the audiobook, and Stephen Fry just makes it so accessible for anyone, so you don't have to know anything about the Greek myths to go into this book. He makes it so simple, gives you all the context you need, and doesn't weigh it down with just layers and layers of extra things that you don't need to know. And his writing style is really clear and concise, and quite fun. I loved this book so much. It might be my favourite book so far this year. I adored it. I would highly recommend it. I'm looking forward to reading the other 2 books he's got in this series. I think that's Heroes and Troy. So I'm really keen to keep going because I adored this book so, so much. Okay, and those are all the books that I read this season, I guess. Let me know what books you've been reading recently, and I will see you next time. Bye.